Hi, my name is Marissa Mitchell, and I'm the head speech coach at Castle High School in Newburgh, Indiana. This is remote judges training to supplement or replace in-person training, particularly due to COVID-19 in 2020, but also down the road in the future for judges who simply can't make judges training. Please bear with me. I am recording in school, so you may hear an announcement break in or one of our school bells indicating that classes are supposed to change once we start school. Today I'm going to walk you through some basic procedures. I'm going to talk about the categories of speech that you'll be evaluating. I'll show you some videos, and then I'll cover some final thoughts. This is not meant to replace your reading of the judge's manual. You absolutely need to read your manual. That's going to give details. This is designed to give you kind of a once over the world about what your responsibilities are going to be as judges and expose you to some of the types of performances that you will see when you judge. So basic procedures. In terms of preparedness, when you show up at a meet, either a morning when it's on a Saturday or after school if it's a round robin, you need to make sure that you have notebook paper, a pen or pencil, your judge's manual, and a timing device. You're going to be timing all of your speakers, so that device can be a smartphone or your watch, but you are going to need to monitor to the second. When you arrive at the meet, you're going to link up with your coach. Your coach is going to be getting the kids situated, usually in the cafeteria, and then picking up paperwork for both the kids and the judges. The coach will bring that paperwork to you, and the paperwork will be what we call ballot sheets and assignments to rooms for certain categories at certain times. So you will know in advance probably what your first 2 rounds will be. Now, if you only have 2 rounds and it's a 3-round meet, don't think that you can leave right at the end of round 2. Frequently, they assign judges as they go later in the day. And if you're at a meet that goes into quarters, semi, or finals, those rounds are not assigned until the coaching staff actually knows which students are moving on. Because the key is that you should never judge your child or the student that you are representing. And unless you go all the way to final rounds and it's absolutely unavoidable, you should not be judging a student from your school either. When you get your assignments, you will want to make sure that you are in the room that you're assigned to at the appropriate time. The rooms are going to be classrooms, and you have the ability to set those classrooms up to ensure that your kids can speak successfully. Most classrooms have open space in the front where a teacher would be giving instruction. That's usually an ideal place for the students to be presenting. So you would choose a seat a couple rows back where you can clearly hear the speaker, but you can also see the speaker's entire body. Because in some of our interpretation categories, they will be using everything from their feet to their knees to their hips to convey characterization. You'll also want to have space on at least one side of you for other speakers who are going to be in the room, because all of the speakers that speak in a round are expected to be in the room watching each other. The only exception to that is students who are entered in more than one category. They may arrive late, or they may ask to be dismissed when they're finished speaking to go to their next category. You will follow a specific order that's on your ballot sheet. You will have critique sheets that you'll be able to write on, and we'll talk about that later. Interacting with speakers is key. Please don't ask them what school they belong to, and they are not supposed to know who you represent. So in terms of the way you're dressed, just make sure you're not wearing any kind of spirit wear associated with the school that you represent. Try to treat all of the speakers equally. Number 1, definitely don't give them any verbal coaching. Any comments that you have on their performance should stay on the critique sheets, and those will be given to the coach to interpret and utilize to help make the speakers stronger in future performances. I try to smile at everybody, or if I'm feeling particularly stoic in a round, not smile at anybody. You want them all to feel like they're on equal footing. Now back to ballots and critique sheets. You'll receive a ballot that gives you the order of the speakers. In the judges meeting at the very beginning of the day, when the host coaches will discuss any drops and adds, you may find that you have already crossed through some students who were supposed to speak in your room. Perhaps the student got sick. At the end of each round, you're going to rank order the students who did perform. There are no ties. Critique sheets are where you're actually going to be writing comments and evaluating the individual speakers. They look different, all depending on which school you're at, but all of them will require you to indicate the time that the speaker spoke, his or her rank, and it will give you sections to evaluate particular elements of the student's speech, such as vocal variation or volume or characterization. It also gives you a space for comments. These are critical. And what I do is on the notebook paper, I keep track of things I want to tell students as they perform, and then when they're all finished, I can put those together in a logical order and put them on their actual critique sheets. Meaningful comments are important. It's not enough to say, nice job, tough room, or practice will make you better. That's not helpful at all for a coach or a speaker. But if you say, your volume was good, but your characters need to be more distinct, that's a helpful comment. And your coaches can also give you some feedback on what they find to be helpful. There are 14 categories when we compete in the IHSFA, which is Indiana's Speech and Forensics Association. They fall into two general subsections: public address, which is what you would think of people giving speeches of some time, or people talking. Interpretation is the other subsection. These are more dramatic. They involve acting. You're dealing with speakers who are pretending to be other people or characters. So we're going to go through each one of these very briefly, and if I have a video to share with you, I'll be able to show you a little bit of what these performances look like. Our first category is discussion. This is a very unique category. Speakers are given a week prior to the meet artifacts. So these could be news articles, song lyrics, videos, poetry, pieces of art, and they're expected to research and understand the background and the context of these items. Then they come in a group of up to 6 kids. They will move the desks for you in a semicircle, and you will have been given a list of questions. You will ask a question, and these students will discuss. It's not an argument. It's not necessarily a debate. You're going to be evaluating them on the quality of their information, whether or not they actually speak. Courtesy. You don't want someone dominating the entire conversation or cutting people off. I always look to make sure they have notes. It's amazing. Sometimes students will actually make up things that they have found. If they don't have notes, chances are they haven't done a lot of research. You are not going to be part of the discussion except to ask a question and then let them discuss. And you're going to be really impressed with what these kids know and how they interact with each other. Now, discussion is unique because you cannot double enter in another category if you're in discussion, because discussion will take up to an hour, and I promise you're going to find that discussion intriguing. 2 categories here: United States and International Extemporaneous. These are your social studies junkies. These kids are constantly reading and collecting news articles about current events, either in the United States or in the world. And they have to collect articles that they find meaningful. They're not allowed to use the internet when they write their speeches. They're only allowed to use information that they have saved. When they get to meets, speakers are each given a current events question. They pull 3 out of an envelope and they choose one. And they have 30 minutes to put together a speech using their own research. So they will plan, practice, and then they will walk in and present something from memory, including citations. They have up to 7 minutes to deliver that speech, and the goal for most of them is really to get all the way to 7 minutes. The only events that they can double enter in are original oratory or impromptu. So here's an example of an extemp speech.
Sometimes in America, it becomes rather difficult to find insightful, unbiased opinions in our 24-hour news cycle. Fortunately for Americans, we can keep our TV tuned in a little bit later and rely on foreign policy experts like Jay Leno to provide some real insights. When it comes to President Barack Obama's nuclear policy, Mr. Leno explained that he has 1,000 warheads pointed at Russia, 1,000 pointed at China, and 1,000 pointed at India, with the remainder at Fox News. Now, while we find Fox News is not, in fact, American.
So this student obviously uses humor to hook the audience's attention, and ultimately he's going to present a thesis answering a question about Barack Obama's nuclear policy. What you're evaluating these kids on is their poise, their confidence, their ease of speaking, and their information. And it's okay if you have zero background in the topic they're discussing. They're going to fill you in. Impromptu is another category. A speaker is given a topic in an envelope. You will provide the envelope. The speaker will open the envelope and look at the topic. And then the speaker has 7 minutes to prepare and deliver a speech without notes. They'll usually bring a note card in, jot down some notes on the note card, rehearse, and then present to you from memory. These topics could be anything from a holiday to a current event to a quote to a song lyric. Really, it doesn't matter at all. And you're looking for the same type of qualities as you were in extemporaneous: poise, confidence, and fluidity.
When my cousin suggested to my mother and I that we should dog sit her incredibly energetic beagle, we weren't really ready for it. You see, my mom doesn't even know what a dog is, so we had a few issues, and I realized that it was going to be a very long night. My mom was yelling at this dog, telling him to do all these things that a human should do, but it was a dog. It was an incredibly, incredibly long night, and I realized that my mom needed a few dog issues, so we really needed to find a way to teach her how to actually deal with a dog. Although it was a very long night,
Now again, you've got a speaker who's clearly delivering something from memory. In some cases, they will stumble. That's totally okay. That's expected for a student who's reciting something from memory or trying to build it as he or she speaks. Another thing to note, the speaker is supposed to make a point. This speaker has a long introduction, which is fine, but ultimately she would get to her point and usually explain it in 2 to 3 key subpoints and then close. Informative speaking is where a speaker writes, memorizes, and presents a 5 to 10 minute informative piece, including visual aids. It can be about anything, but it's not supposed to be persuasive. And it's written by the student and memorized. It's amazing what students come up with, and I have listened to some riveting informative speeches about helium and a ukulele as examples, and they generally are good. Visual aids are not required, but they certainly help enhance the presentation.
Thin Mints, Samoas, Tagalongs. These aren't just the names of the 3 most delicious cookies to ever grace our world. They're a way of life. For many of you, these wonderful treats are like Santa Claus. They come once a year, and they bring utter joy and jubilation to everyone they encounter. For me, these cookies are the foundation and backbone of an organization I've been a part of for several years now. The Girl Scouts. I'll be the first to admit that my fondness for being a Girl Scout didn't happen right away. You see in the Girl Scouts the various levels and labels that you acquire and aspire for. Everyone starts off.
I'm going to pause here just to show you that she has several posters that are visual aids, and in the case of the first one, she'll actually remove the sash and it will say something else. And with the visual aids, the more interactive, the better. And obviously this student has selected something near and dear to her heart, which is generally how informative pieces work. Original oratory is similar to informative. The speaker writes, memorizes, and presents a 5 to 10 minute speech, only in this case, it's designed to be persuasive. Frequently, they relate to social justice or emotional topics. And I should go ahead and add that all of these categories that range from 5 to 10 minutes, there's no penalty for only going 5. However, if you find that you have 2 or 3 speeches that are all really, really wonderful and you can't figure out a way to distinguish among them for ranking purposes, obviously one that's closer to 10 minutes requires more effort and requires the student to maintain that level of fluidity. So sometimes that's a tiebreaker when you plan your rankings.
Beyonce once said the immortal words. Who run the world? Girls. Well, I created a remix to Queen Bee, and my version of that song asks, who ruined the world? Men.
Now, I don't have to show you much more of that. This young man is extremely funny. One thing that you'll note, both sometimes in original oratory or in informative or even in the extemps, is that students may present a point that you don't agree with. Maybe you even find it personally offensive. You're evaluating the quality of the information, and you have to put your personal biases aside. However, if you feel that the student has utilized something that's vulgar or significantly inappropriate language, it would be worth noting on the comment sheet That way the coach can discuss that with the speaker and determine whether or not that needs to be changed.